Welcome to Playbook Live from the Pakistan Playbook. I'm Dan Qayyum. Today is the 14th of August. Every flag out there carries a white stripe, put there deliberately for the minorities Pakistan inherited at its founding. The case for Pakistan rested on a simple argument. A minority cannot depend on a majority's goodwill, which raises a real question. If that was the founding logic, how the state treats its own minorities today is a test of whether that logic still holds. I'm joined by Yasir Latif Hamdani, barrister and author of Jinnah, A Life, who has spent years making the documentary case on exactly this, and who has argued constitutional cases in Pakistani courts himself. Yasir, thank you for joining us. Okay. Right, so going back to the issue of the minorities, there's the argument I keep coming back to. The case for Pakistan was that a minority cannot rely on a majority's goodwill. Does that put the state under a specific obligation to the minorities it inherited? Or is that too generous a reading? I mean, that's the same thing I think you referred to in the start of the call as well.
Yeah, this is precisely what the nub of the matter is. We're talking about safeguards. Mr. Jinnah wanted, he could not have wanted a Pakistan in any event had Congress been ready to give those black and white, most safeguards in ink. He would have accepted a united India. He did so in 1946. Looking for those safeguards. And so Mr. Jinnah was very ready to give those same safeguards to minorities in Pakistan. He sets up on 11th August 1947. He takes up his position as the president of the Constituent Assembly. He takes two committees, one a committee and the other minorities' rights. For the Constitution, he gives it to Shankar Roy, who's leader of the Pakistan National Congress, and similarly places them on the minority committee. So basically, he makes sure that these minorities have, or the newly formed minorities of Pakistan have an equal say, or even more so in terms of their own thing. Because you see, Mr. Jinnah was very clear. If you want a solution for minorities, you have to ask the minorities. This goes back to 14 points that he said in 1929. He talks about it. He says, if you have to give up separate electorates, ask the minorities. Once they are ready to give the separate electorates and accept joint electorates, take the joint electorates. This is a position that he takes in 1929. That's the same position, that's the same deal that he's giving minorities in Pakistan. And just the fact that in 1947 when the partition of Punjab was happening, Mr. Jinnah goes to seats and says, you take an autonomous state. He's pleading with them to stay inside Pakistan, the seats. And he says, you take an autonomous state, you tell me what you want, you can have, a certain number of judges we are seeking. And he gives these assurances. Unfortunately, he just don't accept it. But that's what he's willing to do. He's willing to give those same safeguards, black and white, in ink, and he says, I'm giving you a blank check. I'll sign the blank check, put your, demands on it. So that's the thing. So, the basic foundation demand, as you said, and I really like the way you put it. The fact is, the basic foundational demand is this, permanent culture. I would just, sort of qualify that Mr. Jinnah is like a permanent cultural minority, cannot rely on a permanent cultural majority. And this position is one that has evolved over time. In 1937, Mr. Jinnah trusts the Congress Party, contests elections in concert with them, and after they win in UP and Bombay, Muslim League actually won in UP and Bombay. People who look at the 37 election don't look at the entire picture. In UP and Bombay, Muslim League wins. The idea is that Congress and Muslim League form the government. Congress goes back on that, and Mr. Jinnah realizes that all the safeguards and everything that he's been fighting for, and this idea of association in India that he has, which would at least in the short term try and bring Hindus and Muslims together, is not going to work because the majority party wants to do do everything with the force of majority, tyranny of majority. So Mr. Jinnah is talking about that. He's talking about the tyranny of the majority and fighting against that. And so he does say this again and again. So this is a constant position that he takes. So
So,
I
you know,
don't just to add to that. I'm sorry. Just to add to that, I don't think Mr. Ishaq Ahmed and others positions that they take are very reasoned, and they're not based in. I mean, of course, Mr. Ishaq Ahmed has his own biases given his family background. But the thing is, these people who take these positions have not read the Jinnah paper, have not read Jinnah's history in entirety. They forget that 30 out of his 40-year long political career is spent in the service of India as an Indian, as a man who's repeatedly saying, "I'm an Indian first, second, and last." And why is that this person chooses to make Pakistan? There is no, it's not opportunism. I'm sorry, but this charge of opportunism or this charge of sort of him being just another smart politician is not true. And I'll give you two examples of it. One, both Ambedkar and H.G. Hodgson write about it. They say Mr. Jinnah's no weather call. Not going to turn him the direction. He's very clear about it. He has principles, he has ideals, he might supplant those ideals with new ideals, but he is a man of integrity. That's one thing. The other thing is that, like I said, and I referred to this earlier, but I'll repeat it again. In 1944, several Muslim parties, including Majlis-e-Iraq, and there are people within Mr. Jinnah's political party who come to Mr. Jinnah and they're like, please declare Ahmadis non-Muslim. And we would support you. Now, Ahmadis are a tiny community in the Muslim community as a whole. The easiest thing for Mr. Jinnah to do in order to win such huge support of the Muslims would have been to declare Ahmadis non-Muslims. He refuses. So it's not a question of smart politics or opportunism. It is a question of principle. And Jinnah stands by that. The man was extraordinary. I say this again and again, and people won't like it, but the man was extraordinary. He was a great man of intellectual integrity.
Absolutely. Look, we're seeing from both sides, right? So we're seeing from Pakistani side, from the Indian side as well, there's a lot of rewriting of history saying, basically portraying Jinnah as the unreasonable one, when as you said, in 46, he's actually agreed, and he was let down. Within a month, the agreement was overturned, and he had to, obviously, take the steps that he did. Now, we're talking about, constitutional cases, for example, and you've argued constitutional cases yourself, including getting YouTube unbanned. Thank you for that, by the way. When a minority citizen goes to court in Pakistan today, what does the constitution actually give them to work with? Is there some protection that they have that they can go to the court and say, okay, you know what, this is what I'm facing?
So there are, and this is unfortunately the fundamental rights. Fortunately, I should say, fundamental rights in the Pakistani Constitution are extensive, and they give the minorities the right to free protest, practice, and propagate their religion. They give minorities the right to have their own institutions. Do not tax in any way that serve the cause of Islam. That's there in Article 21 of the Constitution. There are a plethora of things in Pakistani Constitution that a minority can refer to. Now, I'll just give you an example. In 2020, I represented a Hindu petitioner before the Sindh High Court. His case was simple. He was aggrieved with the fact that on the national identity card form, application form, you have to give an affidavit saying not just that I'm a Hindu, but that I'm a Hindu and I'm not a Muslim. Now he said, why should I, a Hindu, have to say that I'm not a Muslim when it's a given, and whatever. So I went into court, I argued these fundamental rights, and then I pointed out to the judge that Hinduism is an older religion than Islam. It should not be defined in opposition to Islam, regardless of what we feel about it.
I mean, someone identifying themselves as a Hindu, Islam doesn't do dual Like you have the dual passports issue, for example. We don't have that in religion. So it's a stupid
So to give
situation.
credit to the Sindh High Court,
Yeah.
especially Mr. Justice A, he struck down the form and he gave this extraordinarily beautiful judgment. In that case, where he talks about this whole thing. So there is a lot of jurisprudence. Unfortunate. The problem in Pakistan is that when you take these cases, when minorities are actually present, you take these judgments of the Supreme Court, the police is like, we don't care. So that's what it comes down to. Otherwise, in terms of, I would say, with all the criticisms that I have of Pakistan and judiciary, but Pakistan's judiciary, with certain exceptions, has stood by the right of the fundamental right of religion, the fundamental rights of minorities. It has always been there's enough jurisprudence. If it applied correctly, Pakistan could return to that original vision of Mr.
There's been as you said, real legislative changes. There's the Hindu marriage law, the Christian marriage reform, the provincial forced conversion bills. Obviously, there's issues with implementation in some parts in Pakistan. But is there beyond that? Is there any structural issues that you see, or from the legislative side, I think we're good. It's the implementation that needs more work.
On the legislative side, we're very good.
Mm-hmm.
I still see a problem in the Constitution. I think it's unfair. You might take it as at the very least, I would want both the offices of Prime Minister and President to not have that condition of being Muslim. But maybe President is a figurehead and Pakistan has this Islamic identity. So we can leave President out. The Prime Minister, which is the executive head, the office of the Prime Minister, just like Great Britain, just like Sweden, just like Norway, that office would be open to all citizens of Pakistan. And there's no contradiction here. And the other thing, of course, is the definition of Muslim. You have to take it out. In order to return to China, that's a structural problem. Once the tries to define Muslim, it divides Muslim. It divides into Shia, etc. So that needs to go. That's Article 260, subclause 3. That needs to go. The Prime Minister's office should be open to all citizens. This is the major structural problem that sort of brings down top-down discrimination down to sort of the grassroots.
I don't know if you've caught up yesterday. There was this procession in Karachi, massive Pakistani Hindus. Doing the procession. I can't remember the name of it, but there's a lot of videos coming out of it. And I was watching on social media all over Indian Instagram and TikTok. It's all over there. And the comments are, really, really interesting because and each comments have hundreds of thousands of likes. And the comments are saying basically, we were fed that, Hindu khatre mein hai, India mein, but in Pakistan, they're fine. So, there's the point I'm trying to make is the perception. Pakistan has a perception challenge and always had. Small things like this can help alter that and can shape. There's a big push from Pakistan where, since the mediation thing and since last year, I think, to improve the image of the country. And there's no better barometer than this, how a country treats its most, the minorities, basically. So I think this is a real challenge that we've had. And I think it's how would you think if someone with real power wanted to fix this properly, where do they start? Is it consensus?
There should be a constitutional amendment that allows the office of the Prime Minister, like I said, those constitutional changes need to be made definitely. That would be a constitutional change that will come to the National Assembly and the Senate, the Parliament as it were. So that has to happen. But a person making that change, if he had enough power, you would have to sort of make certain changes legislatively in terms of law.
Right.
Those need to go. Those laws are draconian and are absolutely a blot on Pakistan's. So those need to go. But otherwise, legislatively we are fine. In terms of resolutions, we are fine. We just need to do these structural changes and definitely sort of become that inclusive state that Mr. Jinnah wants.
Right. Finally, it's obviously it's 14th of August. People are celebrating. If the Gen Z, especially because they're very, starting to become very politically aware, and which is a great thing. What were your message? What do you want to say to them? What should they be focusing on?
Yeah, I think they have to go back to Mr. Jinnah. As cliched or as boring it sounds, the fact of the matter is Mr. Jinnah had a certain particular vision, which is the master signifier for Pakistan. They should reach his light. He has big messages for the youth of Pakistan, for the youth anywhere. Follow his vision and make Pakistan a truly inclusive, truly democratic country that can serve not just but also non-Muslims, but it is good for Muslims themselves. So to return to that Anglo-Saxon idea of secularism, which is good for Muslims, it serves Muslims much more than it serves minorities, by the way. So, so to return to that and understand that much of what you've learned in school, I don't want to criticize Pakistan studies as studies do. There's a lot of stuff in Pakistan studies that is actually right as well, but there are these certain things that were added. Just know that those are not true. Pakistan was not an ideal state. It was not founded as a millennium or millennium. I am not sure how to say it. As a demand that was, sort of this thing about Muslims getting their, place where they would implement Islam. The state has nothing with the business of religion. And religion is definitely not the business of the state. These are fundamentals, and they also and they don't militate against Islam, contrary to what the religious clergy might say. The fact of the matter is, if you take out Mr. Jinnah, even if you take out everything that you said in this podcast, the Quran says, La ikrah fi din, and that is a fundamental principle of any constitutional law around the world in civilized countries. So, La ikrah fi din, there is no compulsion in religion. Pakistan cannot, and there was this final word. There's this great Islamic scholar from Sudan, Abdul Naim. He says in a very poignant line, he's from Sudan, that Sudan, of course, has had similar issues in the Islamic countries. He says that, in order for me to practice Islam, I need a secularist. So
Right.
know that, and understand and reflect on that from my message to Pakistani youth.
Amazing. Yasser, I know you have to leave soon. Do you have another 5 minutes? Or
Sure.
yeah, because the only reason I'm asking is because the sound for the first couple of questions was really bad. So I've just been flagged by. So if that's okay with you, just a flag thing in the 11th of August speech. If you can keep it short. We'll try to pick stuff from the other one that as well. But if you can just cover the first couple of ones.
Okay, we can do that. Can I just wait for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely, man. If you wanna, yeah, absolutely. How are you otherwise? How's things? So you're based permanently in whereabouts in the US?
Atlanta.
Atlanta. Okay. Okay, excellent. Do you travel to Pakistan often, or?
Yes, twice a year. Twice a year. I try and go. My mom lives here. My mom lives here.
Okay. Whereabouts in Pakistan?
Lahore.
Okay. Excellent. Now, if you're ever this side of town, I mean, I'm based in Luxembourg, but if you're ever in the region, give us a shout. Love to meet.
London, right?
Absolutely. I've been a big fan of your writings, your work. I'm sorry?
You're in London, right?
I'm mostly in Luxembourg, but I do spend time in London, but mostly based out of Luxembourg.
Okay. All right. I come to London quite often.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. So
okay, let me know whenever. I'm going to be there in about 2 weeks. So for another couple of weeks. So anytime you're there, just give us a shout. I'd love to, obviously come. It's a short, I think it's about 6 hours in the car. It's not bad. Short flight.
Okay.
Right. So, okay. Yeah. So we're just going to jump into the flag itself, right? So the white stripe, somebody put it there deliberately. Who did that and what were they trying to say?
Yeah, so it was
So it
Mr.
was
Jinnah
Mr. Jinnah
himself.
himself.
Oh wow.
He's the one
He's
who
the one who
came up with
came
this
up with this
idea.
idea.
The Muslim
The
League
Muslim
flag
League
he
flag he
felt,
felt,
which was going
which
to be
was
the
going to
flag
be
of
the flag of
Pakistan, was
Pakistan,
not
was not
adequate to
adequate to
fully
fully
represent
represent
the
the
diversity that
diversity that
was
was
Pakistan.
Pakistan.
He was very concerned about it, and may I add that he practically did that by first asking Mr. Jogendranath Mandal, who was a Hindu, of course, from East Pakistan, to preside over the first session of the Constituent Assembly, in which he gets elected as the president, Mr. Jinnah himself. But the first session, very symbolically, is presided over by the Vindranath Mandal, the Hindu, and he makes that thing.
That
So
so
Jinnah was
Jinnah
very
was
clear.
very
So he
clear.
makes
He
three
makes three
symbolic
symbolic
gestures.
gestures.
One, of
One,
course,
of
is the
course, is the
flag, the
flag,
white
the white
stripe in
stripe
it.
in it.
Hmm.
The other
The
thing he
other thing
does
he
is
does is
appoints
appoints
Mr.
Mr.
Jogendranath Mandal
Rabindranath
not just
Mandal, not
as,
just as,
and remember,
and remember,
even before
even
that, so
before
there are
that, so
three
there are
things
three
he
things
does
he
with
does with
Jogendranath Mandal.
Rabindranath
He appoints Jogendranath Mandal on a Muslim
Muslim
seat in the
seat in the
interim
interim
government of
government of
India
India
in
Right.
in
1946.
1946.
Then,
Then,
when
when
Pakistan's
Pakistan's
created, he
created,
gets
he
him to
gets him
preside
to
over the
preside
first
over the
session.
first session.
And then
And
he
then he
makes
makes
Jogendranath Mandal the first law
law
minister of
minister of
Pakistan.
Right.
So he
So
does
he
these
does these
things. These are
things.
very
These are very
symbolic things.
symbolic
And
things.
Absolutely.
finally, and
Finally, and
this is one
this
of
is
the
one of
things
the
that is
things
very
that is very
contested, but I
contested,
have
but I
enough
have enough
evidence
evidence
to
to
say it
say it
without fear of
without fear of
contradiction.
contradiction.
Mr. Jinnah
Mr. Jinnah
asked
asked
Jagannath
Jagannath
Azad, who's
Azad,
a
who's
Hindu poet from Lahore, to write Pakistan's first national anthem, and he tells him, like, I want to do it because I want a Hindu to have that. So he's very clear about he makes these gestures. So he was
so he
clear
was
about
clear
the
about
flag
the
being
fact
added to it. There was, of course, a committee that sat down,
sat down,
and that
and
committee
that committee
decided the
decided
design of the flag. But the white flag was added specifically for
specifically
the
for the
minorities
minorities
of
of
Pakistan to
Pakistan
make
to
them
make them
included,
included,
so
Hmm.
that
so
it's
that
not
it's
just
not just
the
the
crescent and the
crescent and the
star
star
and the
and the
green of
green
the
of the
Muslim League,
Muslim
which
League,
is,
which is,
of course,
of
there.
course, there
Pakistan
Pakistan
is
is
a
a
Muslim
Muslim
state, a
state,
Muslim
a Muslim
majority state.
majority
It has
state.
been
It has been
created as
created
such,
as
but it
such, but
has
it has
minorities,
minorities,
and that
and that
diversity has
diversity
to be
has to be
represented in the
represented in
flag,
the flag,
and
Hmm.
that's
and
why
that's
Jinnah
why
adds
Juno
this
adds this
stripe to
strike
the
to
Pakistani flag.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I had no idea. The 11th of August speech, we're not going to go too much into the speech itself, but it's one in a series of a lot of speeches that Mr. Jinnah gave. And this is the one that gets quoted because of that one line which gets twisted. Could you just shed a little bit more light what's happening there?
Yes, so
Yes,
Mr. Jinnah
so
in that
Mr. Jinnah
speech
in that
says
speech
that
says that
a person's religion is not
religion
the
is
business
not
of
the
the state.
business of the state.
This seems very
This
clear
seems
about.
very clear about.
But he's,
But he's,
in 11th August,
11th
like I
August,
said,
like I
is
said,
the
is
culmination
of
of a lifelong
a
struggle,
lifelong struggle.
right? Mr. Jinnah
Right?
starts
Mr.
off
Jinnah starts off
in the Indian National
in the
Congress,
Indian National
for
Congress
30 out of
for
40 years of
30
his
out of
career.
40
He's an
years.
Indian nationalist, famous success, again and again. I'm an
Again and
Indian
again.
first, second, and
I'm an
last.
Indian first, second,
But he
and
comes to
last.
this
But he
conclusion
comes to
as
this
there is
conclusion as
democratization.
there
He
is
comes to this
democratization.
conclusion that there are these hardened
There are
community
these
identities, and
hardened
then, like I
identities.
said earlier, there's a book by Aisha Jalal. It's called Self and Sovereign. It talks about how those identities are formed. So there are these
So there
things.
are these
The
things.
question comes
The
up,
question
especially
comes up,
after
especially after
37,
37,
of there being
there
this
being
minority that
that
needs
had
certain
needs certain
safeguards and
safeguards
stuff.
and stuff.
In on 11th
On
August
11th August
1947, Mr.
1947,
Jinnah is
Mr.
laying
Jinnah is
down
laying
this
down this
idea that we
idea that
will
we will
pursue such a
pursue such a
policy in
policy in
Pakistan
Pakistan
that will
that will
eradicate that
eradicate that
religious
religious
difference.
difference.
He
He
says Hindus will
says
cease to be
cease
Hindus
to be
and
Hindu,
Muslims will cease to be Muslims, not
Muslims,
in a
not in a
religious
religious
sense.
sense.
He
He
says
says,
As far
not
as
in a
not in a
religious
religious
sense,
sense,
but because that
because
is the
that is the
personal state of an
personal state of an
individual,
individual,
but in a
but in a
political
political
sense, as
sense, as
citizens of the
citizens
state.
of the
So
state.
he's
So
very
he's
clear
very
about it.
clear about it.
He wants to.
He wants to.
He tries to do
Tries
this
to do this
thing in
thing in
India,
India,
but
but
realizes as
realizes that
Gandhi brings
Gandhi
religion
brings
into
religion into
politics,
politics,
realizes
realizes
that
that
democratization means
means
these two
these two
nations,
nations,
as he comes
as
to
he
this
comes to this
conclusion,
conclusion,
ultimately,
ultimately,
that
that
nations
nations
are going to
are
be
going to be
always
always
facing each
facing
other
each other
as if it
as if
was
it
a
was a
battlefield.
battlefield.
Hmm.
So he's
So
now
he's now
very
very
clear that
clear that
what he
what
fails
he
to do
fails
in
to do
United
in
India
United
in his
India in
earlier
his
part
earlier part
is what he
is what
wants
he
to do in
wants in
Pakistan. So it is a
Pakistan. So it is a
culmination. The
culmination.
11th
The
August
11th
speech
August
is
is
very
very
clear
clear.
on, and there are no two things about it. It's Anglo-Saxon version of secularism. What friend I see it, but Anglo-Saxon version, which is state neutrality and religious freedom, and both those things he's very clear about. And like he said, there are a series of speeches. I've counted about 33 in that 1 year alone, where he talks about minorities and talks about equal rights for all citizens of Pakistan, regardless of their religion, and is talking about religious freedom being the cornerstone of the new Pakistan state. And there's a lot of talk about the objectives resolution that comes after his demise, departure from an original. And that is true. It was departure from the strict state neutrality that Mr. Jinnah, sort of preached. But even in the objectives resolution, it is very clear that religious freedom is paramount for minorities, and equal rights are paramount for the minorities. Speaking on the occasion, Liaqat Ali Khan, the Prime Minister says very clearly that under the objectives resolution, the head of the state can be a Muslim, non-Muslim. He's very clear that he can be a non-Muslim. So the fact is that this was a vision that was shared by all founding members of Pakistan, as it were. Was there in the 54 Constitution, as we talked. Was there in other documents as well. Pakistan was supposed to be this inclusive state. Yes, there was differences between Mr. Jinnah and his colleagues on the issue of that state neutrality. But Jinnah's 11th August, like I said, is clear about that. But that departure was ultimately happened. Nevertheless, Pakistan has stuck to that idea that every citizen of Pakistan, no matter what religion, is he has the right to profess, practice, and propagate. The word propagate is their religion. So this is a fundamental right, cornerstone of policy. Is the cornerstone of our constitution. It cannot be overridden by any other clause or article of the constitution. And that goes back to the 11th August speech. 11th August speech is where it starts, which is Mr. Jinnah making state neutrality and religious freedom cornerstone, the grand norm of Pakistan.
Amazing. Thank you, Yasser, so much. This has been a history lesson for myself, and I'm sure a lot of readers, a lot of viewers who were not aware of the detail behind this. We often, obviously we often get the noise, the people who make the most noise. And the noise has been all about getting Pakistan to a place where we are at the moment. I mean, we've seen over the last, as you said, everything changed after 73, and we've seen that, how things have gone downhill in terms of human rights, in terms of minorities' rights. Hopefully that, there's, with the world getting, much more open, with people able to see how people around the world live. And, as I said, those TikTok videos I saw yesterday was just heartwarming, seeing thousands of Hindus proudly carry Pakistan flags and their own, banners and stuff, and just celebrating. This is the future we want to see for Pakistan and for the world. Thank you so much for, for being on the show. We publish at Pakistan Playbook, where you find our writing on South Asian geopolitics and regional security, along with every episode of Playbook Live. This is the 14th of August. The white stripe on the flag today is the same as every other day. Whether it means anything is the part worth thinking about. I'm Dan Qayyum. This has been Playbook Live from the Pakistan Playbook. Thank you for watching. Yasser bhai, thank you so much. This was a pleasure, man. Absolutely. Well, short notice, but you just, you're amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I, by the way, love what you boy. I love what you.
It's an honor, man. Thank you.
It's just amazing. It's so proud of, sort of knowing you, man.
There's a lot more we can do. We can collect, because again, I completely, I think our views are completely the same with regards to Jinnah, with regards to Pakistan, with regards to the future we want to see. I think there's a lot more we can do, obviously pooling the voices like these together, because the other side has everyone, right? So they can shout the loudest. We need to do, I think, our thing. Yeah. Thank you, bro. Take care. Have safe travels. Where were you heading to?
In order to practice law in Georgia, I need to do an LLM, so I'm heading to the university to study.
Okay. Challenge, good luck. Have a good one. Have a good weekend. And inshallah, we'll do another episode on, I think this is such a fascinating topic with Jinnah and Pakistan. I think we should do another one. Maybe we can have someone from the Indian side as well. In the future, yeah. Cheers. Take care, man. Thank you. Speak to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Hafiz.
Hafiz.